This is Politics as Usual. I'm Pia Ontiveros. Tonight we're talking about the incident at the Recto Bank, or Reed Bank as it's internationally known. Is this a flashpoint in Philippine-China relations? Our guests, the Secretary to the Cabinet, Carlo Nograles, and joining us on the phone, Professor J. Batong Bacal, a maritime academic. We're also speaking to Lucio Blanco Pitlo III, a security analyst. But first, we have Secretary Carlo Nograles here with us. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Let's begin with this. Two main issues here. What happened at Recto Bank and government's response. So when we say what happened, we agree that it was a ramming incident. The Chinese vessel rammed the Filipino vessel. It was an elision and not a collision. It was not an accidental collision.
Well, based on the testimonies of the fishermen, and based on the investigation, the inquiries that were conducted by different agencies of government, it appears that it was an elision, meaning to say that our vessel, the Filipino vessel, was anchored, stationary, and then binangga ng Chinese vessel.
Binangga at hindi nagkabanggaan or hindi nagbanggaan.
Yeah. So based sa recollection sa mga testimony nga ng ating mga mangingisda, na they said that it was anchored, it was stationary. So, elision is the technical term for when a stationary vessel is hit by a moving vessel.
And is it also another fact of the case that they were left in the open sea?
Well, it appears that from the testimony of the fishermen, that it appears that after the incident, there was an abandonment, meaning to say they were not rescued by the vessel that collided with them. They were not rescued by the people in that vessel. They sought help from another vessel, which happens to be the Vietnamese vessel.
And of course, that is a violation of the laws of the seas, because once there is a collision and there is an accident and there are people in the water, it is the responsibility of anyone in the vicinity, including the vessel that rammed that other vessel, to rescue them.
Apparently, based on the duties of state parties to the UNCLOS, then yes, there has to be, it's part of the duty and obligation of these states as part of responsible conduct.
And among those state parties,
they must lend a helping hand.
And among those state parties, of course, the Philippines and China.
Yes, correct.
So dapat yung captain ng Chinese vessel had done something to rescue them, because the first statement of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Beijing was that they were besieged by 7 or 8 Philippine vessels. There was a succeeding statement where they removed that portion. Parang tinanggal yung portion na sinasabing na besieged sila. Well, are you aware of why there is that change in the statement, and what could that mean?
Well, there's no communication naman from the Chinese government about that. So basically, Pia, on June 13, Department of Foreign Affairs filed and sent a diplomatic protest, and this was received by the Deputy Chief of Mission of China on June 13.
Yes.
So that's the formal diplomatic protest that was sent by our government to the Chinese government, and we await for the reply. Now,
so we'll
kung ano yung na-post nila sa social media, or kung ano
sa
yung
statements
mga na-post nila,
because they have press conferences also and statements.
Does that constitute the reply to the diplomatic protest? Well, I think technically it's not the formal reply.
Right.
So we're still awaiting for the formal reply.
At tama naman, antayin natin.
We will be kumbaga, we will await for that formal reply, because kumbaga that is the proper diplomatic procedure and protocol to follow. Not based on statements or verbal statements, because syempre, based on protocol, hintayin natin yung kanilang
sinusundan naman tayo talaga. Okay, understood. So we'll get back to that.
Yung formal reply nila, tingin palagay ko hindi pa yan yung formal reply na inaantay natin.
Okay. Well, we'll get back to that in a bit when we talk about government response. But I wanted to ask this about when it comes to what happened. So they were rescued by the Vietnamese. The other question is, what were the Chinese vessels doing there? This is Recto Bank. As far as we know, the July 2016 ruling said that this is Philippine exclusive economic zone. Hindi
We
ba?
are
So in other words,
sticking
it
to
is
that
Philippine
also.
waters.
We also stick to that position that it is within the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines. Kasama yan sa EZ natin.
Okay.
So wala naman abandonment of that that stance natin. Kasama yan sa EZ ng bansang Pilipinas.
Okay, so now let's go to the government response. So I remember last night we were speaking to you on Newsnight, and I had asked you about all this criticism about the supposed silence of the president after, and then you said na. And I'm summarizing what you said, that syempre the president is waiting for all the facts to come in. He's a lawyer, he's a prosecutor. So syempre talagang hihintayin niya yun. At naiintindihan din naman natin yun. And then after we spoke, the president spoke in Sangli, and he was saying in so many words na, it's a little maritime accident.
Okay.
Sabi niya yon. So, in other words, nakuha na niya yung facts of the case coming from all these investigating bodies. At sinasabi niya, little maritime accident.
Well, siguro, let's not take it out of context or go out of, parang overstep the, or put words in his mouth or kind of come into a conclusion into what the intention of his words were. I believe that when the president said that, I think it is in the context of for us not to immediately say that it is state-sanctioned. Diba? So when you say it's a maritime incident, it's not as if we're not prepared to say, because wala pang reply nga yung Chinese government, we're not prepared to say that this ramming incident, this allision, was state-sanctioned.
Okay, meaning para bang
Let's not
Beijing,
go there. Wag naman
the
po.
Beijing military ordered this vessel
Yes.
to go and attack
So
that
I think it
Philippine
is in
vessel.
that
Hindi,
context
hindi,
that he's
ano.
saying that it is, it looks like a maritime incident, but it is in the context of us being cautious enough not to immediately jump into the conclusion na this is an attack of Beijing against Manila.
Yeah, okay.
Diba? Hindi to state-sanctioned.
Yeah, I wanted to get your reaction to this so that we have an on-camera reaction from you, because there's, and I asked you this last night, I just want you to repeat your response. So, there's been a lot of, again, criticism of the president because the interpretation is that he is afraid of China. If it is basura ng Canada, let's go to war. Pero itong banggaan or pagbangga ng Chinese vessels, isang Pinoy vessel, let's not go to war. Ang daming batikos sa Pangulo ngayon.
Well, I guess that's siguro unfair naman for us to jump into that conclusion. Remember, when that incident happened, immediately the DFA filed a diplomatic protest, and I was told that it's actually a strongly worded diplomatic protest. And then also Secretary of the DFA, Secretary Locsin, is also, apparently he's in Geneva now for the 25th anniversary of the UNCLOS.
Nagkataon, ano?
Nagkataon, nandun siya.
Yeah, okay.
And he stated very clearly
Yes.
that the duty to render assistance is found in the UNCLOS and in the International Maritime Organization.
Kumbaga, at the very least, this is what the Chinese vessel's captain should have done.
Yeah, so meaning to say, as far as the diplomatic procedure and protocol is concerned, we're doing what needs to be done.
And as far as the government is concerned, you are using all avenues to express I guess the disappointment of how the Philippines feels given what had happened. Because hindi lang si Teddy Boy Locsin nagsalita, even the representative to the International Maritime Organization. In other words, ang sinasabi nyo, may ginagawa naman ang gobyerno. Ganun
Yes,
ba?
correct. It's not as if we abandoned it and nakalimutan natin and we're belittling it. It's not. It's passing through this process, a diplomatic process. In the meantime, hindi naman nakakalimutan ng gobyerno ang tulong na dapat ibigay ng gobyerno sa 22 Filipino fishermen.
Yung pera pala na yon, saan galing?
So right now, ang nangyari after the intercluster cabinet meeting is we sort of asked Secretary Piñol of the Department of Agriculture, kasi under rin sa kanyang BFAR, so Fisheries, Aquatic Resources is under him. So naturally, we asked Secretary Piñol and Secretary Alcusi, because he happens to be the cabinet in charge of Mimaropa, Region 4B,
Which covers the area.
which covers the area, to take charge of kumbaga, asking the different departments and agencies on what sort of assistance we can give based on the projects, activities, and programs within their budget, within their mandate, within the jurisdiction, and then offer it as an assistance to the 22 Filipino officials.
Let's go back now to the diplomatic protest. You said it's a strongly worded statement.
I was told. I don't have a physical copy kasi.
Okay, but you were told what words were, what were those strong
not
words?
exactly. Basta the feedback
How strongly
to me,
worded?
that's something that you have to ask DFA because I don't have a copy right
You're right,
now.
they'll
with
never
me.
tell us. Yeah.
But it was communicated to us during the cluster meeting that it's strongly worded.
Okay. And I'm sure those present at that cluster meeting asked, what do you mean? What strong words were used? Ganon.
Hindi naman. We didn't go there. Basta we took
You
it na
didn't
lang
go
as,
there.
we didn't go to the details. In fact, someone was saying na maybe we can ask a copy. So we're actually, I don't know if somebody actually asked a copy from DFA
Okay.
because it's their turf na ng DFA yan eh.
Oh, when you say strongly worded statement, are you saying, Secretary Nograles, that the Duterte administration is not afraid of Beijing, of the Chinese government, no matter how friendly we are with them right now?
Of course, we have to protect sovereignty, the rights of the Filipino people, especially when it comes to our exclusive economic zone. We have to protect the rights of our fishermen. We have to protect the rights of the people. We have to protect the nation's interests. That's always primordial and it's primary consideration for this administration and certainly for the president.
Yeah, although regrettably, some of the fishermen spoke up and, like some would say, parang it made them feel like slaves in our own
Di naman.
territory.
Yeah.
Ang daming sama ng loob na lumilitaw because of this incident and how they perceive. I use the word
Perception.
emphasize on perceive. That's the most important thing
Yes,
right
of
now.
course, of
Perception
course.
of what, how the government is handling this, hindi ba?
Yeah, so that's why we had that meeting and then we've appointed kumbaga, certain secretaries to take charge in the assistance. The FA is doing that, pursuing the diplomatic protest. And in the meantime, tuloy-tuloy yung investigation. Now, people are asking, why are you doing the investigation? Because we want to preserve the evidence. We want to get the testimonies. We want to transcribe it and put it in as affidavits, so that while the memory is still there, the memory is still fresh.
Right.
Then we'll be able to elicit from them these testimonies so that we could formalize it.
Yeah, of course, that's what you would do in any investigation.
Correct.
Speaking of that cabinet cluster meeting, very briefly lang, although we've heard pockets of explanations. No? So first, there was that announcement na special cabinet meeting on Monday. Biglang binawi, hindi, cabinet cluster meeting lang. Kasi hindi available si Presidente and nasa Sangli pala dahil Navy anniversary. Ano ba talaga?
Ang
Because
nangyari
again,
kasi-
yung perception was parang, uy, special cabinet meeting. Di ba? Biglang, uy, binawi. Uy, bakit? Takot ba? Ganon. Di ba?
No,
Ang
it
daming,
was really meant to be a cabinet cluster. But obviously, the option was open na kung sakali maaring nandyan si Pangulo, then it will be converted to a cabinet meeting if ganon nga mangyayari. But it was really scheduled as a cluster meeting.
And the President didn't feel he had to be there.
Kasi, syempre, it depends on the schedule. Eh, naka-schedule na yung sa Sangli. And then
Pero
anyway...
Navy anniversary eh.
Ha?
Navy anniversary
yes.
naman yon.
Yeah.
So parang if you were to weigh between the two, Navy anniversary at tapos pag-usapan natin itong Recto Bank. In terms of optics,
in terms of the cluster naman, again, it was scheduled to be a cluster meeting. Nag-ano lang kami na really na if sakali. But anyway, when it was said na cabinet meeting, I think it was said in the loose context of the word.
Okay. So
Kasi pag cabinet members nag-uusap-usap at nagsasama-sama sa isang kwarto, loosely sinasabi cabinet meeting.
Okay, so
But what we
nagkamali
really meant was a cabinet cluster meeting.
so nagkamali ng announcement? Ganun ba?
Nagka-misunderstanding lang or it's nomenclature lang.
Okay, all right. In that cabinet cluster meeting, who asked now let's interchange the two words, invite or summon the Chinese ambassador, Zhao Zhenhua?
Ganito, no? Siyempre, when we did the cluster meeting, we had to look at different options. Diba? So, pinag-uusapan yung different options, different possibilities. Kasama na yan sa mga discussion. So, siyempre, if you talk about the realm of possibilities like summoning are options that we also look at. Diba? Kasi you have to what are the options available.
Okay.
But at the end of that cabinet cluster meeting, there was no agreement on yung sa
Inviting or summoning the Chinese ambassador.
walang agreement na ganun.
Because,
but when if you
why?
ask the question, what are the possibilities, what are the options available, then obviously these options are options that are laid down on the table for everyone's appreciation.
Yeah, very quickly, because we've really run out of time. Can you tell us in 30 seconds what were all these options, the range of options? So, like you said, pinag-usapan yung inviting or summoning the Chinese ambassador, hindi ba? I'm sure pinag-usapan yung diplomatic protest, pinag-usapan yung pagsasalita ni Teddy Locsin dun sa UNCLOS anniversary, pinag-usapan yung Philippine rep to the IMO, his own statement. What else?
So these options ultimately will depend on what the response of the Chinese government will be. But these options
Galing
were
mo
all
umiwas
open.
sa tanong. Wait, no. So what were the other options nga? What were the other options bukod dito at pati yung kasama na yung diplomatic protest?
The best person to really say or speak or lay down these options, if he agrees to, we will defer to the DFA because they're the experts in this.
Yeah,
this is really the turf of the DFA now.
All right. So my original question was, who asked that or suggested that the Chinese ambassador be invited or summoned?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? Not Del Lorenzana.
No,
Someone named Del Lorenzana. Okay, but there was no.
It's just a toss. You're tossing all of these options. Pwede ba ganyan? Pwede ba ganyan? Pwede ganyan. But again, it depends on on the response or the reply.
Okay.
Of China on that diplomatic protest, and then the one who will really advise the president on what actions to take, turf there, it's really the DFA. Turf na ng DFA.
Okay. When do you expect a response?
They're the experts here.
Yeah. When do you expect a response to the diplomatic protest?
Yun, in terms of timeline, even in international practice, when these things happen procedure-wise, even among different countries, there's really no timeline set.
Okay, sige.
So, kung sabihin mo, is it 5 days, 6 days, 1 week? There's no timeline set. We don't know. We take it day by day. We wait for developments to unfold.
Okay, let's jump to the Mutual Defense Treaty, the Philippine-U.S. Mutual Defense Treaty. It was brought up, by among many people, by Senator Ping Lacson. He said he was disappointed by the President's statement at Sangli. He said it is a, quote, self-limiting course of action which disregards an effective weapon in our arsenal, which is the MDT. He said if a vessel is attacked in the West Philippine Sea, within the Pacific, military or civilian, pwedeng to use the MDT to say that it is within our arsenal. And he's saying, ang habol lang niya kasi is a strong balance of power that is going to be presented because you have the strong presence of the U.S. fleet in the Pacific.
I think the operative word here is armed attack. Armed attack on troops, public vessels, or public aircraft. If there is no armed attack, I don't think the mechanism of the Mutual Defense Treaty can be triggered. So we have to be careful. It's not just any attack. You have to consider that it has to be an armed attack.
Okay, well, in response...
We're not ready to make that conclusion.
Okay.
I don't know if you'll ask the fishermen if they're ready to make that conclusion as well. So I don't know. Again, it really has to be clearly an armed attack before we set that trigger in motion.
Okay, well, Ping Lacson had another statement, and I quote, "That kind of backward thinking by Secretary Nograles and Mr. Panelo is why we are in this situation. We should not wait for an armed aggression against our vessels to occur before us invoking the treaty. Proactive thinking by way of increased U.S. presence, etc."
Read the MDT, Mutual Defense Treaty. It's very clear there how that mechanism operates, and how that trigger operates.
Okay, all right. Brief final words from you, Secretary Nograles.
Gusto ko lang, I just want to assure everybody that we are doing what needs to be done in terms of the diplomatic protest that's set in motion. DFA is taking it from there. In terms of the assistance to the fishermen, hindi natin kayo makakalimutan. Nandito po ang gobyerno. Tutulong po kami sa inyo. In terms of the investigation, that will still continue to preserve the evidence. So we're doing what needs to be done. So I'd just like to assure the public na ginagawa ng gobyerno ang dapat at nararapat natin gawin.
Secretary Carlo Nograles, thank you very much for being with us tonight. Salamat.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break. Politics as usual. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Politics as Usual. We're speaking to Lucio Blanco Pitlo III. He's a security analyst. I call you Lucio, right?
Yeah, please.
Well, thank you for being here. Okay. All right, let's talk about what happened. Kaninang pinag-usapan namin ni Carlo Nograles is what happened in government's response, no? Do you agree with what, with the version that has come out already, the story from the side of the fishermen? They said their vessel was rammed by the Chinese vessel. They said that when the vessel was rammed and they were in the water, the Chinese vessel left and did not help them, and that they were rescued by a Vietnamese vessel.
I understand that there is still an ongoing investigation. I think both sides are still conducting their own separate investigations. Although some reports already were submitted, but I think it still has to be compounded for a cohesive report. But I think at the moment, at the instance that there was this incident, I would have no reason to doubt the statement of the fishermen, from our side.
Yeah,
so
they wouldn't make up a story like this, right?
Yeah, I don't think that there was any attempt for them to actually present another side of the story. I don't think they have an agenda in the first place, no. So I take their word for it.
All right. Do you also take the word of the Chinese Foreign Ministry when they say, originally they said the reason why the Chinese vessel left the area was because they were besieged by 7 or 8 Filipino vessels, and then they came out with another statement and removed that portion. So what,
so I think they already retracted their earlier statement. So that has yet to be accounted for, the omission.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I understand that the embassy already, and the Chinese Foreign Ministry already came up with a statement that they are still taking into full account everything, and they will issue the results of the investigation. And when fishermen from their side was found to be erring or in violation, they will not hesitate to undertake the necessary punishment.
What kind of necessary punishment do you mean?
I think leaving the fishermen, to the elements is in itself the biggest mistake or the biggest violation, infraction committed by the Chinese side, in this instant. So I understand it's an international maritime convention. So there's a duty and obligation for mariners,
to help anyone in distress at sea, right? To help anyone in distress at sea.
Yeah. So I think that's very important. So there's a clear instance there that we had a good argument to make.
Yeah. Well, so what kind of punishment would, I mean, if in the end that could be proven, how would Beijing punish the captain, the crew of that Chinese vessel?
I would.
What are their procedures?
I think the first would be compensation, for damages to the fishing vessel, and for the loss of livelihood for the days that our fishermen were unable to go back to fish, because of the incident that happened to their ship.
Okay.
There could be anywhere from fines to potential imprisonment, education, training, orientation of their fishermen. I think the justice that we can provide, both sides and other fishers, who are also operating in the area, the best justice that can really happen out of this incident was to prevent a similar thing from taking place again.
You're saying that the central government in Beijing could punish the Chinese crew?
Maybe this local government or the central government can undertake this. Measure.
Okay. Well, the other question here about when we talk about what happened in government response, so what happened kasi is what were the Chinese vessels doing there? Because Recto Bank, correct me if I'm wrong and correct the entire world if we're wrong, hindi ba the Philippines already won its maritime case against China. Recto Bank, nasa loob yan ng EEZ ng Pilipinas, hindi ba? So ang tanong doon, ba't nandun sila?
Yeah. So of course, without acknowledging the fishing rights of foreigners in our exclusive economic zone in the West Philippine Sea, it's very clear that there are foreigners operating there. The Vietnamese who rescued our fishermen were also there. They're not supposed to be there. They have no business to be there. if they are involved in fishing or poaching, then we should, based on our maritime laws,
Yeah.
our fisheries laws, we should arrest them.
Okay. Let's talk now briefly again because we're moving into the closing part of the show, no? Government response. Kanina pinag-usapan namin ni Carlton Logras a whole range of what government has already done, so I'm not going to repeat it anymore. Are you satisfied with that so far?
Well, I think the diplomatic protest that was described as strongly worded is already, I would think, a big step already. And then efforts to try to reach out to all parties. No? An invitation for the captain by the president, you know, an invitation for the
But it wasn't
Vietnamese.
clear pala na kung saan galing invitation eh.
I just don't know, maybe it was channeled through a cabinet secretary or, but I think the effort to reach out to all individuals who were there during when the incident took place was there. You know, there was a sincere effort to come up with the whole picture, you know, by piecing all of these things together.
So are you satisfied with how government has responded so far?
So far, I'm good.
You're good. Oo, pero ang daming criticism.
Sure.
Matikos kay presidente.
Sure.
No?
So
Baga kasi in short and simple language, basura ng Canada, let's go to war. Banggaan ng Chinese vessel,
I
let's
think
not.
the issue of the trash with
Iba.
Canada is really different.
Okay.
The trash has been here for years. You know, this one is an issue between a fishing incident that in areas that are being contested or claimed by others. Of course, as far as we are concerned.
Tapos na, di ba? Tribune. Okay, we need to say goodbye to you, but for your closing statement, please respond to this issue about can we invoke the Mutual Defense Treaty, Philippine-U.S. Mutual Defense Treaty in this regard?
Well,
To maintain a balance of power, to keep a balance of power. Yun ang objective na gusto ni Ping Lacson.
to activate that, no, of course, we have to, I think, also inquire into the nature of the ship involved. There were charges saying that it could be allegations, you know, made that it could be a militia vessel. Because if it's just a fishing vessel, a civilian fishing vessel at that, having an incident with another Filipino fishing vessel, well, I don't think it would be difficult, you know, for us to actually activate the MDT.
Talaga, hindi pala military or civilian. Ano?
Yeah, so I think because we have to, the war there was attacked. So of course there are many. I mean, I'm not into you know, all of these jargons or what really constitutes an attack.
Okay.
External armed attack.
So the act of ramming is not an attack.
Depending, it's an attack, but the agency involved in the attack and whether there was intentionality, those things I think still has to be determined.
All right. Lucio Blanco Pitlo III, Security Analyst, thank you very much for joining us on Politics as Usual, and thank you for watching. I'm Pia Ontiveros.